When Cyberpunk 2077 came out, it was in simple terms, bit of a mess. A very buggy mess, which sadly hid what I have found to be an excellent game behind it. Since release, the game has gotten regular updates and just recently got a major update with a 2.0 patch, and now it feels like the game is ready for release. So let's talk about if Cyberpunk is worth our valuable time to play through. Depending on how deep you go into the story and side content, a full playthrough of Cyberpunk can range somewhere between 25 to 60 or 70 hours, even up to 100 if you want to be a completionist. And if you get the Phantom Liberty DLC, you can add extra 12 to 30 hours on top of that. This is a long but very immersive game, and one I tended to forget time in as I played. Now with the 2.0 update, the developer tackled many of the complaints the community had. Ever since release, they have done a decent job at patching bugs and making the game more playable. As I played through the original story earlier this year, and while I came across quite a few visual bugs at the time, I am happy to report that as I went back into the game, I did not see these same bugs. This time around, I played the earlier part of the story along with Phantom Liberty. The most notable changes I noticed was the driving was much nicer, and the talent tree has gotten a great update, making it more impactful, and all the little percentage bonuses are now allocated to a separate skill system with upgrades based on your playstyle. And I encountered noticeably fewer bugs. Though a friend of mine was playing the game on the PlayStation during the same time, and he came across quite a few bugs, especially on the visual variety, so experience may range. But my playthrough remained bug-free up until the final missions of Phantom Liberty, when for some reason the game refused to register I was out of missions, not allowing me to use the fast travel system or phone. Though this was easily fixed by quick saving and then quick loading, but I had to do that for the rest of the game, which I thankfully at that point wasn't very far. But still, it seems Cyberpunk will always have bugs in it, so just be prepared for that if you decide to play the game. But what is this game about? Well, you play V, which is the nickname for your character, and is used by all other characters in the game. The game is fully voice acted, so this is a good way to have your character called something. Outside of the name, you can make V any way you want. You can pick your body type, genitalia if you have the nudity turned on, and even breast size. Though, to my major disappointment, I noticed that while you can pick breast size for your female V, the clothing seems to be made specifically for the default size and will simply adjust her breasts when you put on clothing, which I found disturbing enough that by the end I actually had my V just get her breasts adjusted to match the clothes. From my understanding, the same applies to the male package, just so you know. Now, while the character creator is at the beginning, you can still change your character throughout the game. Be it through certain NPCs or your apartment mirror, you can make cosmetic changes to your character. And these range from the different, though limited cosmetic cyberware for your body, some funky eyes, scars, few different tattoos, and hair, and even fully on rearranging your face. Though it is notable you don't see V very often throughout the story, and usually when you do, it is in mirrors and is meant to bring an impact to a moment. The entire game is played in first person, outside of the times where you're driving a vehicle, where you have the option to zoom out so you can drive in third person if you prefer. Through the game, your V will also have further cosmetic changes. As you get different cyberware installed into your body, you will have some changes to your looks, though most notably your hands. I found those changes to be quite fitting, though I was a little bit sad that I could not paint my gorilla arms. Those visual changes have gameplay difference to them and often really nice animations. At the start of the game, you will also pick an origin for V, which changes both the earliest part of the prologue with 3 different origins, but also offers a lot of different dialogue changes throughout the story. I went corpo, and I found it really fun how many times I could use this origin during conversations, showing the knowledge and history V had. The main plot of Cyberpunk is the story about V, who is searching to become someone known in Night City. leading them to a deadly situation which basically puts V on a countdown timer to their death. Though this timer does not progress except in the main story, so you don't really have to worry about doing all of the side content if you like. There is really no time pressure. And as V is dealing with this, you will meet a variety of interesting characters. The most prominent one being Johnny, who is played by Keanu Reeves. And really well played at that. I absolutely fell in love with him throughout the game. But I found the cast of characters that I came across to be very human, and each one being unique with their own interesting story and personality. And each one has their own agenda, wants and dreams that can sometimes or cannot align with the goals of your Wii. And the game has some excellent voice acting, only outshined by the actual dialogue animations. These are the best ones I have seen in a game so far. The details of the characters shifting around in their seats, walking about during conversation, moving chairs, they just walk and move more human-like than I've ever seen in a game. And if there's anything other games should take from Cyberpunk, it is these animations. They just make the other characters feel so alive and kept me fully immersed in the story. Now the sound system and writing is great, both through the main story but also through absolutely amazing side content. And depending on the side content you do, you can actually open up different endings. But the game itself has several endings based on your activities, and the more you do, the more options you have. The visuals of the city are great. The city is dirty, filled with neon, and is easy to just get lost in it. I did find that I wished some of the areas were a little bit cleaner to give a better contrast to the more rundown areas of the city, and the NPC variety is quite poor, causing me to sometimes pass the same rather distinct looking NPC 2 or 3 times while walking down a short street. But the city is filled with stuff to do, to the point that it can be very overwhelming as you start. As you open up your map for the first time, you are just bombarded with gigs and NCPD missions, and it's just everywhere. Thankfully there are some map filters, but it is just so much information. So it is important to filter out the things you are interested in doing, and especially because at the start of the game it feels like we can barely walk 2 steps without walking into some sort of a side content. But in the end I found a lot of the side content to be really worth it. Gigs and jobs are the most interesting side content, which usually have their own little stories. But the NCPD missions were fun from time to time. They are definitely more filler content if you just want to work on leveling, or get a little tidbits of lore around the city. Now the Phantom Liberty DLC activates sometimes around Act 2, and can be played at any point thereafter. It is a fun DLC that opens up a new area in the city, adds new gigs and expands on a fixer that had very little content in the base game. And the main story of the DLC is really good. Depending on your choices, it opens up a new possible ending for V after finishing the DLC, but you are also free to ignore that ending and play the rest of the game as well, making it worth to play the DLC as it does not override anything else, and it does give an interesting perspective into the politics of the world. But it's in no way a mandatory thing to have. The game stands perfectly fine on its own, and the DLC is simply an extra fun to have if you want more content. Overall, I really enjoyed Cyberpunk. I feel it's a great game with a wonderful story, and I hate the fact that the poor development choices gave the game a rightfully earned reputation for being a buggy mess. Because behind the bugs and issue is one of the best video game stories I have ever played. And I really wish the legacy of Cyberpunk wasn't the story of a game that came out fundamentally broken. For me, the game is definitely worth playing. I absolutely adore this game and I would like to recommend it to everybody, but in the end, it's really up to you. If you enjoy open world RPGs, this might be something for you, but it also might not be. But tell me, what do you think? Is Cyberpunk 2077 worth playing for you? Have you played it, and what do you think about the game? Let's talk about it down in the comments. And while you're down there, let's do all the good YouTube stuff. It helps keep the algorithmic overlord pleased with my content, so they will share it to more people. But whatever you do, I hope you have a lovely day.